Little did you all know that that climate change video I made was purposely censorious, and I lied about everything I said just so I could create rage bait content, read your hate comments, and then create another video and make money off of it. No, I genuinely meant everything I said in that video. And it's been funny. The video came out at 4 p.m. my time, and I remember looking at it at like about 10 p.m. and I think the like-dislike ratio was like 93%, something like that. Well, it's plummeted since then. So I think people that maybe aren't subscribers or regular viewers started seeing the video afterwards, and oh boy, are they angry. It's super obvious that the majority of a lot of the craziest hate comments came from people that watched maybe 3% of the video or paid no attention whatsoever. The majority of the most hateful or critical comments or whatever can be dismissed by these facts. One, I specifically said human-induced climate change is real. Two, I explicitly said we should seek out policies that mitigate against the disaster-type scenarios involved with climate change. And actually, that's pretty much it. The vast majority of the criticism is people just telling me that I deny science and that I think climate change is a hoax. I said exactly the opposite of that. Guanail34 is particularly mad at me, so we're going to see a lot from them. Prediction for the next few weeks, you're going to get a lot more calls from people wanting to discuss climate change than those. No. Make sure you read this Johnson report comment. It's so funny, but I want to say something. It's either Bill Burr or Louis C.K. I don't know. The raunchy ginger comedians all kind of blend together for me, but they have this funny and really interesting, because it's true, bit about pro-lifers and pro-choicers. And what he's essentially saying is, I don't get why pro-choice people don't get why pro-life people are outraged. They think you're murdering a baby. You can disagree with them. You can think they're wrong. But how can you not understand that they find that completely outrageous? Do I think that climate change is an existential risk for us? Not really. In fact, the things about climate change I think pose existential risks are the downstream geopolitical effects of it. That all the insects are not going to die, so we're going to, and we won't be able to grow food anymore. We're not going to run out of oxygen because the trees disappear. That's just like literally not even how that works. Yeah, we'll get to that. There's a specific comment thread about that. However, I understand that other people do think that it's an existential crisis. And while I disagree, I mean, I understand the logic. I can understand the reasons that people have for forming that belief. So I don't fault anybody for that. I don't think you're dumb. I don't think you're being dishonest or a bad person or anything like that. So I'm not making this video, first of all, here's what I know is going to happen. People are going, maybe they won't because I'm saying it, but there is likely going to be a lot of comments saying, Herder, the science denier, had to do a damage control video. No, that's not at all what this is. I'm also not going to point out every single criticism and say, ha ha ha, you're wrong. I'm really kind of doing this for the lulz and to have a chance to talk about things that I didn't talk about in that first video because I didn't want it to be an hour and a half long. I would say this is definitely the most thoughtful, and it's not even like a rebuttal to anything I said. They're just pointing out, hey, Peterson, you didn't talk about this thing. One of the things about agriculture, which is that's always what I viewed as the biggest problem we would be facing centered around climate change, is if the climate gets to the point where we can't grow food, then we're obviously all going to die. And I don't really think that way anymore because I understand how utterly broken and stupid the way we do agriculture is. We are currently so incredibly wasteful and inefficient with agriculture that if our ability to grow food suddenly became drastically lowered, we would be fine. We would just have to change the way we do agriculture. For example, where I live in California, there is this enormous battle going on with water rights between the Colorado River water and how much of it goes to Arizona, how much of it goes to California. California has extremely heavy political weight, and like the agricultural economy in California is so massive. Arizona needs water, yes, for people, but also like they're not growing food like we are. It's golf courses, right? Us, we're growing the food, right? So California is going to win the battle over the water with Arizona. However, we don't need all that water. In California, we grow a lot of cotton and we grow a lot of nuts. And none of those things need to be grown. And you wouldn't believe how water intensive growing cashews and almonds and especially cotton is. In fact, like right where I live, there used to be this lake called Lake Tulare Lake or Lake Tulare, I don't remember. It was the biggest lake west of Lake Superior. It was bigger than Great Salt Lake. And less than 100 years ago, they just drained the entire thing so that they could grow cotton. Funny enough, when we had that extreme rainfall and flooding a few years ago, the lake actually came back. If you look to other places like the rainforest, the primary reason why rainforests are being cut down is for agriculture. But it's not to grow soybeans to make tofu. It's for ranching. The vast majority of the land that we use and the food we grow is used to grow food that we feed to cows. For the most part, it's cows. So yeah, I'm not a doomsdayer on this. We could lose literally half the arable land on the planet and still be able to make more than enough food to feed everybody. It would be like economically disastrous, which is a totally fair point to make. But if we just stopped feeding food to our food, we would be more than okay. And, maybe lab-grown meat will fix that anyway. Maybe climate change won't destroy any currently arable farmland on the planet, but we severely reduce how much farmland we're using anyways because it becomes more economically viable and efficient and whatever to just eat lab-grown meat anyways. It could be a problem that solves itself. So I take your comment. It's a good comment. It's a thoughtful one. I don't even really disagree. I'm just not alarmist with respect to it. Somebody's gonna have to tell me what this is possibly supposed to mean. We've been extracting nitrogen from the atmosphere for, I think, over 100 years. The Haber-Bosch process, a Nobel Prize was won for that. The world population has doubled 3 times since then. So I have no idea what this comment means. Look at it this way. There's so much pushback from corporations to misrepresent the dangers of climate change that the alarmist is often needed to get the point across. So if they're going to be extreme, we have to be extreme on the opposite side. It's not a bad take. What I kind of disagree on is this dude's old enough to remember. I'm old enough to remember. I don't know how many of you. Does anybody remember how utterly stupid everybody on the right was about this issue 15 years ago? They just flat out said that the temperatures aren't even going up when we had known for decades that they are. So they've ceded so much ground on this that I think actually the Overton window position on it has shifted toward us. So again, I'm not super pessimistic about it. And again, I do advocate that we should enact policy that goes toward renewables and whatever other types of things could mitigate the projected disastrous effects from climate change. So I wouldn't say that's the exact same thing as the being an alarmist to counter whatever's going on there, but I think it's close. Eric doesn't need to worry about those things because he doesn't live in Sudan, though. He can whine about alarmists and bullshit like that, while actual people die from heat strokes and he couldn't give a fuck. No, actually, I don't, and neither do you. There are Uyghurs trapped in concentration camps right now. Do you care? No, you don't. There are like innumerable issues around the planet. There are too many things going on the planet for any one person to even begin to care about. Now, you can wish that they weren't the case. You can like morally object to them, but you don't actually care. And again, if this person watched the video, they would know that climate-related deaths are at all-time lows. So yes, you can cherry pick in places where bad things are happening, but if the overall trend is a dramatic trend toward a reduction in climate-related deaths, then clearly what we're doing not only works, but it works better than anything we've ever had before. So what Robin Hood said here is a pretty good comment, but what I was saying earlier, particularly around agriculture, I think addresses pretty much everything in there. But I do really love, I love the thing about the reason there's a lot of apathy toward doing anything about it is because people think the world is literally going to end sometime soon. I've been aware of that for a really long time, and it's a little bit conspiratorial because it's not like we have direct evidence that that's why they delay and deny doing anything. But I do think that that is the reason. That is a conspiracy that I believe in. Oh, here's Guanel. Climate change is very black and white, though. I don't exactly know what you mean about that. If you mean like that human-induced climate change is black and white, then yeah, literally I never disagreed with that. Denying that it's happening and humans are... Oh, yeah, I should have just kept reading. Yeah, once again, you could not possibly have watched my first video, Guanel, because I explicitly said that it is. And I even gave a number, 75%. Has Eric ever been outside the U.S.? No, actually, I haven't. I have never left the country. I don't really know what that was supposed to be about, but I was beginning to doubt, but thanks for confirming that no matter how smart someone is, he can still be wrong on certain issues, like you on the severity of the threat of climate change. What's the potential severity? And this is one of the things about the alarmism that really annoys me. Quite a huge number of it lives in the land of speculation and hypotheticals. Do you guys know that the entire Arctic Ocean was supposed to be ice-free like 20 years ago? So whatever you're going to tell me about how half the world population will die because we can't grow food, yeah, no, not with you on that. I don't know what Tim Too Fool is trying to say. I know what he's talking about, the comment I made about Alex Epstein, but I don't know what they're trying to... I don't know what your point is. Not my goat missing the ball. Oh, I'm sorry. Yep, here's Guanel again. The problem is he's being extremely defensive about being called out for it. Oh, geez. Just one objection here. If you advocate for stopping the use of fossil fuels, you're not necessarily advocating for contributing to child deaths. You can advocate for the wealthy countries to stop using fossil fuels as much as possible while understanding the need for less wealthy countries with less infrastructure to use them. Yeah, that's totally fine. And like, I wasn't specific about that, but I'm just addressing I wasn't nuanced because the rhetoric around this isn't nuanced. The rhetoric is we need to stop burning carbon or everybody's gonna die and shit like that. Oh, let me tell you a story. Man, I can't believe I forgot to tell this. About like 6 years ago when I was teaching, this bothered the shit out of me. There's this other teacher. He was a math teacher. Absolutely great guy, but definitely a climate alarmist. And he was telling me that a student of his was telling him how they want to go to school to be, it was a doctor or something like, I can't remember what it was, but it was a excellent career choice and a very ambitious one too. And he legitimately said to the kid, none of that's going to matter if we don't fix climate change. So like just telling this kid, don't pursue your dream that helps people. The only thing we should be focused on is this one singular issue. I had such a huge problem with that. I didn't say anything about it because I was trying to be polite, but But anyways, yeah, when we were still in the Paris Climate Accord, what was really annoying to me, and this is a sentiment that this commenter will agree with me with, I think, is, it said like, oh, so the United States has to, commit to not opening up so many coal-fired power plants, but China gets to do all they want. It's like, guys, China's not a developing country. At this point, they are extremely advanced in many, many respects. They are far beyond us. But like literally only 40, 50 years ago, the entire country had like hardly any national highways, for example. And they have this huge population that we in the United States, we already got there. Okay, we're good. So yeah, you would expect more fossil fuel use in countries that need to get to the point where they can then start, where they can have the manufacturing capacity and the power and the infrastructure to switch toward, renewables. We are absolutely shocked. I don't know who we is supposed to be. I think you mean you. That people would react poorly to you, a debater who should know better. Basically using this guy as a straw man to represent climate alarmists and inadvertently conflate said alarmism with mainstream consensus and activism. The guy inspired the video, but I didn't say this guy is all climate alarmists or anything like that. In the 3 parts for my video, the what climate alarmists say and why it's wrong, what they don't understand. Those were just generic positions and things that I hear all the time and have for many, many years. A few cult-like alarmists and doomers, I hope, are not the basis of your belief system, nor should one particular book by an Obama appointee that points out some of the overzealous talking points and mischaracterizations justify a belief that the problem is not that important. Yeah, there were these comments like, oh, so some random guy wrote a book. No, he's a PhD physicist. He's consumed all of the climate literature and the guilt by association because he worked in the Obama administration and Obama didn't do enough about climate change. Whatever. If you can't see the qualitative difference between somebody in this current administration and what they think about it versus, back then I don't know what to tell you. But again, it's not Steve Koonen's opinion. And people were attacking the IPCC too, which is also just extremely bizarre. They look at thousands of climate scientists are part of that organization, and they're not funded by fossil fuels, and they don't do their own corrupt data. They look at all of the data that's been collected, and then they assess that data. Like, there is nothing better that we have than the IPCC for understanding what the consensus of the climate data is. I wouldn't really say that any of this is necessarily a bad take. Maybe it misunderstands me just a tiny bit. This is the only part here, though. I'm telling you that you're simply wrong about the severity of this problem. So this is what I'm not hearing. What is the severity of the problem? How many people are going to be killed by this issue? Again, I recognize that there are specific problems. I addressed those in the first video. I was also pretty clear that my take on it is, human-centric. If all pandas and polar bears in the world die, human beings will be just fine. I don't want that to happen. I'm just saying that that's the reality. So I think a lot of people, when they talk about how much of a disaster it is, they're severely expanding their circle of empathy to non-humans, which is fair. I think that's a totally just thing to do. I also care about that kind of thing. So maybe, yeah, I don't know. I guess I wasn't terribly explicit on this, but climate change is talked about as if it's something that can destroy the planet. And if you're going to say that, then it's like you're comparing it to an asteroid impact, which would absolutely kill untold numbers of human beings. This issue is not that. And that's really, for the most part, what I'm addressing. Planet Peterson is not against the rainforest. Planet Peterson is not against biodiversity or anything like that. April seems to be upset that I'm not engaging with enough people in the comment section. I mean, I replied to some things, but like, I have stuff to do. This paragraph here, April, is completely false. Hurricanes are not increasing in intensity or severity or frequency. You can find a pattern since the 1980s where they have, but again, oscillating trend that was covered in the video. Or in other words, a person accusing me of science denial is, well, I wouldn't call this science denialism, but it's like scientifically incorrect. Droughts are a thing, yes, but they are not increasing in frequency. We have data over the last 100 years. Melting ice caps and glaciers are a thing. That is absolutely a thing, yeah. And, you know, this was brought up by people. I'm well aware of this, that the Arctic is warming more so than any other place around the world. So that 1.1 degrees Celsius of warming is not, equal everywhere. The fact we contribute to the rising in global average temperatures is solid and peer-reviewed science, which I explicitly stated is the case. All right, here's the thing about the insane clown posse and Obama. That was one of the few things I responded to. Ah yes, Guanale. Peterson, denying anthropogenic climate change is happening is on the same level of science denial as being a young/flat earther. How many times do I have to say it? It was so clear in the video that I specifically said that we cause climate change. Anthropogenic climate change isn't a conspiracy. It's a fact that's happening. Here's another fact. I said that before you did. Nolan's comment here. Yeah, again, I mean, a lot of this just sounds, again, like it's in the land of the hypothetical. The Sixth Extinction, I've read that book. I really liked that book. The thing with the extinctions is there are like a huge number of them. It's not like a blanket thing, though. It's very selective. Cycads, which is super weird, if memory serves me correctly, that's the thing where the greatest number of species are going extinct. If they're not number one, they're way the hell up there. Another huge one is amphibians. And probably the biggest reason for that is because of their permeable skin. So it could be that where amphibians happen to live, the climate where they live is drying out right now. And that could be a part of it. But their permeable skins are extremely sensitive to all the pollution stuff. Now, even if we completely get rid of climate change, that's another severe issue. It's something I didn't touch on because it's basically a different topic. But amphibians, are extremely susceptible to those kinds of changes into the environment that we dump in through pollution. Yeah, this stuff about slash and burn agriculture and the annexation, the dead zones in the ocean. That's not a climate change thing. That's a pollution and land use and biodiversity thing. They're valid points, but I never denied any of those things. So Adam is wrong, and he's going after you in bad faith. That said, to ignore the effects of anthropogenic climate change is just to ignore science. I never did that. Well, I don't know. Maybe McDubbin is saying that me saying we can't attribute hurricanes to climate change is me denying human-induced climate change. I don't know. Don't take it up with me. Take it up on the scientific literature, which really clearly says the exact same thing that I said. And I know that because that's all I did is report on what the literature says. Oh yeah, here's Guanale with the whatever typical, I don't know what the guy's doing. Safe to say PP's two main debate weaknesses are climate change and veganism. Oh, holy shit. Well, now we can get double hate on here. I keep asking vegans why it's morally permissible to wash your body when there are mites that live on your body, and so you're killing them and they are animals. But I keep asking them why it's fine to do that but not eat meat, and the only response I ever get is they just say, those aren't animals. It's like, fucking great, dude. Okay. What led him to the conclusion you don't believe in climate change? Yeah, I've been asking that question. Oh, Guanale's going to tell us. I mean, PP kind of proved him right. He basically denies it, but just doesn't want to say it outright. What is this person smoking? I don't think you have the right take on this. I think you've tried too hard to take a middle ground on the issue. And worse than that, your analysis video cherry-picked data in a misleading way to downplay it. I don't know. You got to tell me what you think I cherry-picked, because like for all the, now in this video that this comment comes from, this isn't, I didn't go into it in as much depth as I did in the incomplete truth video, but like I literally look at the data usually back 100 years, if not 150 years. So to be accused of cherry picking, I just have no idea what you're talking about, honestly. For all the people that still hate my take on this, you need to tell me what I am specifically denying, because I have no clue what you're talking about. Please do that. I respect you, Peterson, but I can't wrap my head around this position. I agree that every country can't adopt hydro, solar, wind, nuclear, also geothermal would be in there, and tidal power. Nor should they at this point, but at the same time, isn't it the responsibility of those that can attempt to mitigate the effects of anthropogenic climate change to do so? Again, I said we should go for policy that does that kind of thing. So I'm not totally sure. I'm not totally sure what the criticism, like I tried to be really clear on this. The developing countries, in order to get them to prosper and get them to the point where they can have like an alternative fuel economy or whatever, they're going to have to use fossil fuels, or we're going to have to invest in them and probably use a ton of fossil fuels to get them to that point. Otherwise, they're just going to be in the state of, oh, well, we can't progress like the developed world anywhere close to the rate they are because we're only allowed to use alternative energy, but not nuclear power. And so we just can't make progress. I just think that that's actually morally reprehensible. So I don't know, Derv, I actually agree with you. Okay, this exchange was not very productive. Batman says, so does the fact that we are seeing a rapid loss in insect life and a current mass extinction event not really bother you? I don't know about this one, boss. That may be a downstream effect of climate change, although it's absolutely not clear whether it's, pollution and land use or climate change. Just the fact that we exist and have so much sprawl, even if we didn't burn any fossil fuels, would so severely disrupt ecosystems and migratory patterns and so many other things that this issue could still be an issue. I view this basically as being like, so not the point. That doesn't mean that it's not an issue, though. It's just like really, I don't view it as like the point or directly attributable to increasing temperatures on our planet. And then Nolan, we've seen a lot of comments from Nolan, but yeah, his urban brain doesn't comprehend bug. And so I just said, I grew up on a farm. So yeah, like I have a life. I saw this comment. I just wanted to leave a little drive-by thing like, yeah, you're wrong about me. I grew up on a farm. And then Jeff Jeff, that was an excellent, well thought out answer to the question. Good job. And so I just replied, look who I replied to, Dingleberry. I mean, like, yeah, maybe you shouldn't attack your viewers, right? But I mean, like, I don't know. I feel like if you know me, you know that calling somebody a Dingleberry isn't a malicious attack on my point. I'm a very unserious person. And then Byron says, fair enough. I think which comment you chose to reply to says a lot. I mean, it says a little bit of something about what I was choosing to do with my time at, when was 14 hours ago? 14 hours ago was 11 p.m. for me. So that's what it says a lot about. To Batman's comment, I mean, it's a good comment. It's a fair topic. Again, way at the beginning of this video with like the agriculture stuff, that's what I would say, but also what I said fairly recently about like literally even if we didn't burn any fossil fuels at all, our sprawl would affect them in such ways that may be the reason we see the extinction from bugs in particular, but then like the mass extinction thing, to what extent that can be attributed to pollution versus climate change. I'm not taking a stance on that. I'm just saying I'm agnostic on it. I don't know. I mean, I'm allowed to be agnostic. I'm not denying. Like, let's say there's a study out there that I don't know about, that some of you know about, that directly says the reason all the frogs are dying, it has, we know it's 1% to do with pollution, 99% to do with increasing temperatures. If that study exists, I don't know that it exists. I'm not taking a stance. I'm just saying, I don't know. Quanail, he literally says he doesn't care. You literally said you don't care right there. Yeah, that's probably the part of the video where it says something like, if, I don't remember what I said, if it was like the rainforests or whatever, if like a bunch of animals die, but human beings are allowed, like, still maintain the same quality of life, then I don't care. Yeah, neither do you. If you care more about nature prospering over humans and you think humans are the direct cause, then just start with yourself. Everyone calm down. Eric is a self-proclaimed science communicator, so you know he knows the science stuff. It makes me giggle how all these TikTok people, is that what I am? Am I a TikTok person? I don't know. Think if they discuss a science topic, doesn't matter if they present the actual scientific consensus, they are a science communicator. I have presented the scientific consensus. Oh, Jeff responded. Dingleberry, ouch, hurt. I'm going to need a few to recover from that scathing reply, Mr. Peterson. Well, Jeff, you didn't read very carefully, so hopefully this is a learning experience for you. Kind of feels like you're looking at the entire issue incorrectly. Why would causing human deaths from the climate matter? This is a future issue, not a present day issue. I don't know what you're trying to say, Nick. The fact is, over 100 years ago, human-related deaths to weather, climate events, natural disasters was like drastically higher than it is today. And we have gotten there by doing all the things that cause climate change, but building up an infrastructure and a society for humans that protects humans. So the same thing is what you would expect in the future. So natural resources should be kept intact. Using them all up is moronic. Agree we shouldn't try to control what other countries do, but we should be advising. Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with that. The idea that the federal government currently has for like selling millions and millions of acres of federal land in, especially in the American West, I am very much against that. I'm very much in favor of creating, I don't know what they're called, but like those like areas, like offshore protected natural areas where like you're not allowed to do commercial fishing or whatever. Obama created like the biggest one on the planet back during his administration. I'm totally in favor of things like that. The Ogallala Aquifer in some parts of it is getting drained, and people can literally run out of fresh water. And so I think there's a lot of moronic policy centered around these things. So, I don't disagree with any of that. Climate change will cause incredible famines in multiple parts of the world. No, I don't agree. There's something about famines that I talked about that now that I think about it, I don't think I expressed it very well. I said that famines are a technological and geopolitical issue. And people might have thought that what I meant by that is that climate change doesn't cause famines. That is not what I meant. What I meant was we grow more than enough food to feed everybody. So if in Ethiopia they can't grow food, there is absolutely no reason why the UN cannot still guarantee food security in Ethiopia. For that specific example, we have the technological ability to do that. That's what I meant. So if people thought that I was saying that climate change doesn't cause famines or something like that, that's probably fair, but sorry for misspeaking. So here, this is just, I'm not even going to respond to this. It's just like the straw manning here, like putting in quotes that I said this and or that's even what I meant is just so pathetic. So not responding to that. Lubru. Lubru is a Division 1 Planet Peterson hater. I forgot about Lubru. There was, what was that? There was this thing in a video I put out a long time ago, and Lubru left so many comments. I forgot what it was. Why would anyone trust Eric? He's a former junior high school science teacher. I've never taught junior high school students. I have only taught high school students. So outside of making elephant toothpaste and setting up experiments crossbreeding peas, I've never bred peas before. They aren't really an authority. Yes, which is why I rely on academic scientific literature, and that's all I ever told anybody when it comes to climate stuff. You can't just say Florida needs to be flooded with no explanation given. There are people who live there, viewers of your channel. That is a sacrifice. The thing about Florida was a joke, but if you don't know that Florida is a lost cause by now, ugh. The Amazon is one of the biggest producers of oxygen on the planet. Okay, this is actually one of the facts that aren't true that appears in my book, Facts That Aren't True. Although this point is kind of pedantic. You have to separate gross oxygen production with net oxygen production. Guys, plants have chloroplast, but they also have mitochondria. They engage in cellular respiration. They consume oxygen. Trees in particular are huge, but the photosynthetic part of the tree is just the leaves. Trees consume the vast majority of all the oxygen they produce. Guanale here does not understand the difference. Phytoplankton produces about 70% of all of the oxygen in the atmosphere, and then terrestrial plants account for, they're saying 28%. We can go with that number. This is actually really funny. They debunked their original claim down here. The Amazon's one of the biggest producers on the planet, but all land photosynthesis in total only accounts for 28%. So literally debunked yourself. But anyways, of the remaining 30% or whatever, the Amazon probably, I wouldn't even disagree. I don't know off the top of my head, but I wouldn't disagree that it is the largest producer of what's left there. Or in other words, it's like the plurality, but not the majority. However, that's just gross production, not net production. If every single tree on the planet, as I wrote this here, if every single tree on the planet disappeared, then yeah, they make oxygen, but you're also getting rid of a source that consumes oxygen. And it would change by maybe 5%, not more than that. Now, does that mean that Planet Peterson doesn't care if the rainforest disappears? No. There are so many good reasons why we should have rainforests other than oxygen. You also used basically all the anti-climate change talking points. I truly believe you are just scared to say it and trying to be dishonestly discredited climate change without taking an explicit stance because you know your audience would call you out. This fucking person is such a lunatic. Ruslam here, I mean, you can read it if you want to, but they say, oh, so you're just ignoring the effects of it? No, I specifically talked about the effects of it. Oh, and then the 50K thing. Yeah, okay, we are going to talk about this. YouTube started recommending this channel to me this week, and I was wondering why. Despite years of content production, subscribers had capped at under 50K, but now I guess I have the answer. So this right here is my 10K subscriber plaque that I ordered on Etsy because YouTube doesn't give you those. And it was May 19th, right? Nope, I was wrong. May 17th of last year, admittedly, I hit 10K. So, you know, I've grown by over 4 times since then. I mean, just the way that people just toss shade and hate without watching your video, without thinking about anything. It's just, oh man, it's funny. Of course, Gwenail is in this thread as well. So, CLR Spirit here. This is a pretty good comment. And I'm not really going to criticize any of the content of the comment, but I want to make the distinction that I made earlier. When I talk about climate alarmism, and a lot of what people talk about is they talk about climate change as if it's on the same level, again, like as an asteroid impact. A lot of these are economic problems and like geopolitical destabilization problems. Like if the East Coast of the United States, if the sea levels rise and everybody in Miami and tons of people in like Manhattan, whatever, have to get up and move somewhere else. Yes, that's a huge, huge, huge problem, but it's not what I envision as the kind of thing. Because like climate, they're not talking about like, oh no, the economy. No, that's not what the alarmists are typically like referencing and what they're typically worried about. In the responses you've heard from me, I'm sort of just, for the most part, my rebuttals mostly are something to the effect of, no, we're not all going to die. Here's why. But stuff like this, totally fair. Yeah, Szechuan is talking about the famine thing that I mentioned earlier. So I didn't mean that famines are caused by a lack of technology. I meant that we can solve them even if they happen with technology and policy and politics. I'm going to assume that this is just a joke. Yeah, Nolan has left, 300 comments or something like that. As long as we don't go end Permian. See, this is the stuff I'm talking about. You have to move up north where the climate can't kill you. And we may be heading toward end Permian, the largest extinction event in the history of the planet. Well, next to the great oxygenation disaster. This is the kind of loony shit that, I don't have respect for that. His name is Planet. He hates the planet. Make it make sense. Okay, well, this video is going to get heavily edited down, but at this point, I've been recording for an hour and 15 minutes, and I can't read any. Holy shit. What? Okay, well, for example, I can't read anymore. I'm just going to have to assume, okay, well, there's the bottom of it anyways, but that's all I have time for today. I can tell a lot of people put a good amount of thought into quite a lot of the things that they said. I would say the most fair criticisms or whatever stemmed from things that I just didn't talk about because it just didn't fit in, or because it's not necessarily directly climate related, but it's, environmental. So I don't know. Yeah, that was fun.